Frank Isola is the one who had the exclusive with them looking at Phil in the front office, New York Daily News. Knicks writer who joins us now. When did you first get an inkling about Phil in the front office, Frank?
Well, first of all, Dan, when you talk to Reggie, ask him why he used to flop all the time when he played against the Knicks. That's one thing. As for Phil and the Knicks, it's always been kind of a fascination on both sides. But I think the GM part of it is interesting because Steve Mills was only hired in late September to replace Glenn Grunwald. And at the time, Steve Mills admitted that he was going to hire someone to work with him. Steve kind of wants to be more part of the business side of it and let someone kind of be the hand, the day-to-day running the basketball operations. What's interesting about Phil Jackson is that we don't know if Phil Jackson really wants to be part of it every day and run the day-to-day operations. Is he going to move to New York? Is he, is he going to be scouting games? So we did get an inkling last week. I had heard something last Wednesday that the Knicks might have been up to something. Listen, don't getting Phil Jackson to be your coach. I get that. To be your GM, there's no other way to say it, but it's a bit of a risk because it's something he's never done before. Doesn't mean he can't do it, but the Knicks right now are at a point where can they really be taking too many chances?
But is there an offer in place here, Frank?
Oh, there absolutely is. And here's the thing. None of us really know if it's to run the whole thing. I tend to think from everything that I've heard, it's to run the whole operation, which now that could impact Steve Mills, who just got there. And then there are other people who you talk to that speak to Phil Jackson that say that he loves the arrangement that somebody like Jerry West has, where he serves as a consultant for the Golden State Warriors. He takes a couple of flights a month up to Oakland, and he has that type of job. I just don't know. At 68 years old, is Phil Jackson ready to be the full-time GM of the Knicks, moving to New York and really handling? Hey, it's a 24/7 job, and it's something when Donnie Walsh came here he was doing. I just don't know if Phil Jackson, has the appetite for that.
Yeah, I don't know either. I said I didn't think he would take it, but, the ego gets into play. He wants to be relevant. You can be 68 with everything. You got your beautiful fiance, you got your money, but you still have this urge, retirement. I don't care what you do. It can't satisfy that. And that's why I think Phil wants to still be relevant. But I guess it goes to ownership here, Frank. Does Dolan give autonomy to Phil Jackson?
I think absolutely he would at first, but I think he also did that with Donnie Walsh. And then, eventually there was no longer autonomy. And then, Jim Dolan was not too crazy about the fact that Donnie Walsh, before every game, Donnie Walsh goes out on the court, and I know this is like a crazy thing to do. He sits on the court and watches his own team warm up. He watches the opposing team warm up because to him that's probably part of the job, watching how guys train and work out. And what happens is, there's all of us knuckleheads in New York, and eventually we would all surround Donnie Walsh, and he would kind of sit there and he would hold court every day, and he would represent the organization in a very dignified way. And I think it drove him crazy that Donnie Walsh kind of had this cozy relationship with the media. And it didn't mean that Donnie Walsh was, telling us anything, state secrets, but Donnie Walsh, that was part of the job that he did. I just don't know if Jim Dolan can tell Phil Jackson, I don't want you talking to this guy, I don't want you talking to that guy. Now, is Phil Jackson in love with the media? No, but he certainly has certain friends that are in the media. Does that mean he's not allowed to talk to them anymore? So autonomy was something that was promised to Donnie Walsh until it came time to trade for Carmelo Anthony. Then Jim Dolan completely took over the negotiations, and in the end, the Knicks probably gave up more than they had to in that deal, and that's coming back to haunt them because remember, the Knicks traded away this year's first-round pick. So if the Knicks don't make the playoffs this year, they're a lottery team without a pick.
Melo's future, with or without Phil Jackson?
That's where it gets very interesting because, Carmelo has not been informed of this, and not that, he's an employee making a lot of money, so, Jim Dolan's the owner. Jim Dolan's allowed to do whatever he wants. But, Jim Dolan has had a pretty cozy relationship with CAA, which represents Carmelo, and Mike Woodson, among others, and this seems, the whole thing with Phil Jackson, I think, to them, has come out of left field. I still think if Phil Jackson isn't here, I think Carmelo Anthony will remain a Knick. I still think the Knicks will offer him the money. I still think in the end he will take the money. Now, if Phil Jackson comes here, Phil Jackson could be in a position to say, you know what, we're breaking the whole thing apart. Carmelo will be afraid, and we'll get him off the books, and then next year you get Bargnani, Stoudemire, Tyson Chandler off the books, and I'll take a run at the class of 2015, plus I'll have a first-round pick. For people that I've spoken to, they say that Phil Jackson, he has the guts to do something like that.
Oh, wow.
So I think for Carmelo, it's kind of a dicey situation. I think if Phil Jackson isn't here, I think Carmelo stays. If Phil Jackson does come, maybe it's 50-50.
We're talking to Frank Isola, the New York Daily News Knicks beat writer. First report that the Knicks had reached out to Phil about the front office position. But I look at this Melo situation, and I liken it to a dog chasing his tail. That he's going to want the max no matter what he does, and then do a sign and trade like he did in Denver. Because he goes to a bad team because he helped make them bad, or worse, because he had to have his money. Is he going to do the same thing where he goes, you can trade me, or I'm going to go to the Bulls or the Heat, but I want my max money here? Then the Knicks get something in return.
Yeah, that's not going to happen because with the Knicks are on the salary cap, they can't do a sign and trade with Carmelo Anthony. So that's why Carmelo is going to have to decide: do I just sign for 1 year? Do I not opt out and maybe hope to get traded this summer? That's a slim possibility. I think what Carmelo has kind of done, it's kind of like what Jim Dolan had done earlier in the season when he painted himself into a corner by talking about how patient of an owner he is. And then I have a funny feeling he probably wanted to fire the head coach and was like, well, shoot, I did call myself the world's most patient owner. Carmelo the same way. Carmelo keeps talking about championship. And I don't have any problem with Carmelo Anthony taking the most money. A lot of people do that. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, he's in the right.
But you can't then say that you're all about winning a championship when you're really not putting yourself in the best position to do it. If he really is committed to winning a championship, and at this stage, at where he is age-wise, he'll be 30 in May. He's played a lot of basketball. So let's say he's got 3-4 really good years left. If he went to a team like Miami, went to a team like Chicago, he really would be increasing his chances of winning a championship. If he stays in New York for the money, hey, more power to you. But you got to stop saying that your main goal is winning a championship, because that's clearly not the case.
So if I talk to you in a week, what's the topic of conversation?
Probably what's Phil Jackson. You know what? Something tells me he's going to take the job, and maybe the conversation will, unless the Lakers step in at the last minute and say, Phil, don't do anything. We want to bring you back. But I think,
gosh, how good would that be?
Hey, that could happen. You can't say that might not be in play. If not, we'll probably be talking about Carmelo Anthony's free agency, because Carmelo started the conversation sometime in September, and guess what? That's still the conversation in March. But don't rule out the Lakers with Phil Jackson, because maybe that's part of the play here as well.
Okay, so there can't be a sign and trade with Carmelo.
No.
Okay.
Because of the salary cap situation.
Okay.
I hope I'm right about that, Dan, because then I'll make you look bad and me look really bad. But I'm pretty sure that is the case.
All right. Hey, congrats on the scoop there with Phil, and thanks for joining us.
All right, Dan. Anytime.
All right.
Take care.
Frank Isola, New York Daily News.